What I would like to do next is to introduce to you Deke Smith. And Deke is somebody that is very well known in the building industry. Deke is not only a registered architect, but he's been out on the field, he's been a surveyor, he's a facility designer, he's been a cost engineer, but more than anything else, Deke has put information into building information modeling. He's the guy that's been out there helping us develop the standards which help us share information, has been a tremendous proponent for interoperability. Please help me welcome Deke Smith.
Good morning, everybody. Actually, this has been a whirlwind trip here. I've been this week, started out Monday talking to a group of probably a dozen or so Chinese folks that Jerry Lasern brought in to the Institute. Yesterday I was talking to a group at ASU on their ACE program. In each one of these steps we kind of take, we learn more and we come up with more things that we need to do. There's definitely not a limit on the things that we need to do. But some of the things at the Institute, National Institute of Building Sciences, and I've been there I've actually been working with them probably some 25 years while I was working for the Department of Defense at the same time. And through there we've developed things like the whole building design guide, which is huge as far as a sustainability issue, and it's all built around that. There's actually 9 different areas that we're looking at in that document as far as how we look at overall sustainability. I'm also now working as I'm the Executive Director of Building Smart Alliance, which is the North American chapter of Building Smart International, which again, a lot of BIM is really looking at that basic, how do we get the information so we can use it, so we can continue and sustain our buildings and make them more usable. The other area that I'm now involved in, I'm also Executive Director of Building Seismic Safety Council. And again, looking, there's been this last 3 days, there's been several major earthquake events around the world. And that's one of the things, again, talk about sustainability and how we look at buildings not falling down. For example, in Christchurch, New Zealand, when they had their major earthquake a couple of years ago, they lost pretty much their whole central business district. And one of the problems that was amazing to me out of that was that although the buildings didn't fall down, a lot of the stairwells, the reinforced concrete stairwells, just pancaked. So the people couldn't get out of the building. So, it's a continuing process to look at as we continue to develop new products and new ideas and things like that. What are all the ramifications that go into it? It's not just the material itself, but how is it going to perform in all kinds of different types of situations. Some of the other things, we have a high-performance building council, our congressional consortium through the Institute. So it's sponsored by a couple of members of Congress and looking at different issues related to high-performance buildings, which I kind of look at as how we bring a lot of these pieces together anyway. Some of the other things that we're working on, we've got a thing going with the Asian Pacific Economic Cooperation Forum, and that's looking at, working with emerging countries and things like that, looking at low carbon economies and collaborating just to get, establish different protocols and making sure we have common things like that in building schemes in that area. We also have, this is kind of a neat program that just started just recently with NASA. Their STEM program, which is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, which is for K through 12 students. Getting them to think that it's involved with the International Space Station, but looking at how do we apply BIM and some of those sustainability concepts to building space stations. And, kids getting interested in things like that, but there's a lot of things that we know, as we know from the space program, there's a lot of things that we can apply then back on Earth. And then the other thing that's kind of interesting that's been, that we've been working on recently is with the, it's called the Owner Project Requirements with the Department of Homeland Security, And that's really looking at these security objectives, but also, and this is really an area that I think a lot more work needs to be done on, is looking at how we tie all these different things together. How do we look at energy, environmental, safety, security, and including blast and things like that, and sustainability, durability, operational, and cost benefit. The issue is that we kind of do real well at looking at one thing at a time, but we don't then see what the impact of decisions in that one area are on other areas. We have a magazine called JBIM, Journal of Building Information Modeling, and this issue, which just came out, is on TCO, total cost of operations. Doug Christensen at BYU has come up with a concept that basically, before the regents accept and move forward with a building, they understand what the total cost of that building is. How sustainable is it? How much energy is it going to use? All those issues they look at before they approve the building. It's not just get that initial building done, but it's how is it going to perform throughout its life. And I think that's huge in being able to understand if we have to do it through a cost basis or whatever, but I think there's certainly higher level issues that we have to worry about than just cost. But that's an area that we can start thinking on too. So.
Any questions?
I feel like I was a product of the prior version of that because they really had an emphasis on it as I went into school. And I've got a cousin who's doing the same thing, and she's pretty excited about it at age 11 or 12. And so I'm just wondering how many kids, you see the statistics about how we're not doing that well in math and science at that age.
Yeah, and an interesting point, that I do think that you capture the kids at that age. I'm not exactly sure how many people are going through the STEM program at NASA right now. I can certainly find out. But I know that is, kind of the concept of how do we grow future engineers and things like that are interested in. I do know that there was another group that I've been working with a little bit. It's called Be the Game. It's in inner city in D.C., I think is where it got started. And what they're looking at is kids that like to play video games. And now they're getting them to start making video games and seeing that there's an opportunity for them to do work in that area. And I think that's kind of interesting too. That and these kids are high school or even younger. In fact, they have high school mentors. And they start learning how do you bounce a ball? And what happens when the ball, how does it deform when it hits the ground? How high is it going to bounce because of material it's made out of, things like that. So they're learning physics, but they think they're just, playing games. And that's the kind of thing that I think we have to think about how we're going to get kids engaged in the future. I'll find out about the STEM program.
Hi, I have a different question. Are you familiar with the Resilience STAR concept that's being developed at Department of Homeland Security? It's an analog to the Energy STAR program, trying to put a mathematical basis behind a definition of resilience so that facilities could qualify.
Actually, I haven't. I don't think I have heard of that one, but I'll
connect with you on that.
Okay, that'd be great. Okay.
I have a question because you talk about this total cost of buildings and all this, and I wonder, if you see United States houses, all these houses are made of wood. All the European houses are made of bricks and cement, okay? Big difference. When you see devastating tornado, it's just wood around, nothing else. Which option will be more sustainable, from the total cost or whatever? Maybe it's much better to make them out of wood because they quickly move the capital, It's next stage, from the investment point of view, move quickly the capital. And in Europe is different, and the house is for 100 years.
Well, and I know through our Building Smart Norway group, the folks that are ahead of that are from the housing group in Norway. And housing, pardon? Yeah, but I know that they're looking at a lot of sustainability issues. And I don't know that NAHB has really, I know we're starting to work with them in some of those areas, but they don't have necessarily a history of really looking at that. And I do think, certainly, as you mentioned before, Europe has a whole different idea of sustainability. I mean, I can remember eating in a restaurant. There was a restaurant in Paris since 1400, and that just, and we're like an old restaurant is 100 years old or something. It's just not the same mindset at all. So, okay, all right.
Thank you, Deke, very much. Please help me give him a hand.